Choose your fighter.
Cleaning up and lubing the windshield wiper motor, it's pretty simple. There's a gasket here. I know it's a little messy on the workbench, but 2 cars in one garage, there's not a lot of space for things. One arm moves here, moves this gear, and it was real stiff, so that's why I decided to take it all apart. And that could use a little bit of lubing up. Make sure everything's cleaned out, first of all. And then on this side, you've got just the 2 arms that are pretty simple on this motor. The longer arm there and the shorter arm here. Now you know what it looks like inside the wiper motor.
I was pretty lucky overall that I didn't need to rebuild this thing. I just needed to take it apart, clean it, re-grease it, and put it all back together. I reused the paper gaskets, and they don't really get a lot of chemicals on them. They just get a little bit of grease, so they are there just to prevent dirt from getting in. The center piece, the motor, is actually just the same principle applying there. A couple of wire connections attached to it so that it has the variable speeds, and it's real simple just to pull everything apart, clean, and re-grease. All in all, pretty straightforward. You see here the foam rings or the foam gaskets that go around each arm respectively. If it's loose at all connecting to the firewall, those are kind of your first line of defense against rattles, but I've had these things get loose and rattle in the past. It's easier to put this in first before the dashboard is installed, but it's not impossible. If you do have your dash in place, you can still get a screwdriver up and under there. There's plenty of space to work around. And later in this episode, we're going to be putting in the dashboard as we start the wiring. What you're seeing hanging down right there is the overhead wiring that goes to the brake lights, and it runs basically under the headliner above the driver's side. First, I'm installing the door strikers here. Sometimes these need to be bent just a little bit so that it does make full contact with the roller on the door itself. You want to make sure it makes good contact. Otherwise, you can have a door that just swings freely. And, put them in, grease them up afterwards. And speaking of grease, I did put a little bit of WD-40 on the threads of the striker plate. I did have the zinc plating on both the striker and the latch, and I did like how that turned out. I didn't affect any of the functionality of it, but the sandblasters did get some sand inside the threads here, so I used a little bit of WD-40 to help those screws go in, but I didn't want any WD-40 where the rubber gasket and the striker meet the inside of the door jamb, because if you get any lubricant on there as the door closes, it will be very difficult for it to hit the striker and then stay in place. So any lubricant there will kind of slide it out of position or out of adjustment. So give it a dry install on the rubber. And here is another view of exactly what I'm talking about. A little bit of WD helps those threads go in with the screws. Some cars, especially in really rusty climates, they will strip out either the heads or they'll just break off into the striker of the door. It is possible to get in there and replace the actual nut that receives the threads, but that's a lot of hassle, and thankfully I didn't have to do that on Bruce. Also, thankfully, the body shop did the alignment of all the panels, so let's cross our fingers that everything goes back together just fine. Here I'm taping up all the surfaces that might get damaged as I do the installation of the tank, and then I put in the butyl putty. Once again, this is IPD's brand of butyl putty. It is my favorite of all the butyl putties I've tried. I think just 2. The fuel tank did not really line up perfectly. The rear of the car was hit, so putting the butyl putty on the tank and then trying to install the tank, I think that worked, and then the butyl putty started falling off, and it wasn't making good contact, so there's a little bit of experimenting here. The rear of the car was on a frame straightener, so all things considered, I didn't have the gas tank in the car when they were straightening the frame, so the fact that it almost fits is actually pretty good. I would get, the same 80-20 rule applies here.
Sometimes you just can't catch a break, and it takes a while to do even the simple things. This gas tank comes with 2 sets of screws. One set small, like this, and then the other set was a little bit larger, as you could see on the right. My guess is the larger screw, either I put somehow an extra 10 screws in a baggie, or it does come with an extra set of screws one size up, in case you've either got stripped out holes, which is very common because it's just a couple screws around the rim, 10 of them, or maybe the cars had 2 different size holes and they just send you both to make your life easier. I've got one hole that's real stripped out, and I've got a couple holes, like those top two right ones, the screws are kind of going to the left. And then on these bottom holes, the screws I think are going to the right, and the side screws line up okay, but there's a little bit of a twist, or some of the metal has been bent. And then also figuring out the butyl putty took 3 tries because, well, things didn't line up really well, and I wanted to make sure the butyl putty made good adhesion all the way around. So I'll go underneath and see just how it's doing, but for a 50-year-old car, almost 60 years old, I think it's about 80-20. Not perfect alignment, but anybody who comes across the same scenario will understand that anything this old with simply just a couple screws holding in a Benson tank is gonna potentially have some problems. Now I gotta put a screw head so it matches, but then put a nut on the bottom side so that way I can get that last hole finally sealed up.
And as I hope that the biggest issue I would have here is just the alignment of some of the screw holes, the fuel tank sender actually gave its own set of problems. The gasket is asymmetrical and it needs to be in one way and one way only, and then I had some issues with the hardware. Failure is not an option, but sometimes things like just this time-lapse video is 1 hour of time and very tired hands. Here's what happened.
I really hope I didn't set myself up for this being as difficult as it turned out to be. Something was up with these holes on the gas tank. Now, not only are the 5 holes not a full symmetrical star pattern, you have to find out exactly which pattern it's going to bolt up to, and then you have to find out exactly the same thing for the gasket. I ended up just using a Sharpie to mark them, but it took a few tries. Here's a little frustrating thing. The VP Auto Parts kit for the screws for the fuel sender, 668, I think it's a 918. The thread on those is standard thread, which is what all the hardware on this car is, 10 by 24. Volvo, this is a Volvo gas tank from Volvo themselves, and they give you this kit with your gas tank. It's metric 5 by 0.8. Come on, guys. It's like they switched over to metric with the 240s or maybe even the 140s, and they never looked back. And so all the parts that they're making for the new cars have now become metric. All right, just another thing to deal with, but it's been dealt with. It took a long time. Those screws didn't want to go in, and I couldn't figure out what's going on. I didn't have the right tap for them, and they were coming out, and they weren't stripping. They were just really, really difficult to get in there, like the paint was stopping them or something. So me hands are very tired, and the fuel sender is finally in. Did a lot of partially entering and backing out, putting in WD-40, screwing it in a little bit more, backing out, putting in a little WD-40. Whew. All right, as you can see, I have no space to work back here because I had to close up the door. The big bugs come out when the sun goes down. So we'll move on to the wiring harness. Look, I got the hinges in, not finally adjusted yet because I need to be able to attach this nose piece to the radiator support, and that uses these 2 bolts. But that zinc plating, man, it just looks so good. Yeah, I mean, it's better than spray paint, better than just cleaning up with wire brushes and sandpaper. Ask me how I know. Here is our menu for the day. There's a lot of fun little bits here. I'm going to be putting in the pedals, the clutch master cylinder, the foam for the firewall with the retaining piece for it, the steering shaft, the vents. I put all the hardware out for everything, including the coupler for the steering. And once everything is in place, then I can go ahead and put in the dashboard. You may remember this dashboard was not painted on the backside, so I taped everything and then just painted it from the other side. There's a few spots where the paint probably came out. I'll have to clean those up. And today my VP Auto Parts order should be coming in, so that means I can resume work on the engine as I get my front and rear main seals. Okay, what else? Yeah, that's it. Let's get started. I gotta get my caffeine fix, or I'm gonna be pretty useless.
I guess it goes without saying that anytime you have somebody to help you, it always goes by much easier. For some reason, I put the pedals in and they kept falling out while I made my way around to install the bolt, and everything is kind of spring-loaded in there, so it mostly stays, but with the amount of grease that I use to make sure I have no problems with binding in the future, it kept falling out. Other things you can install, the vents, the little vents up top for the dashboard either side, and the gas pedal. The gas pedal will come out for the final trim of the carpet later in the summer. The steering shaft was taped up after it was painted, and then I can install the coupler here. If you want the best safety, go with like a 67 and newer steering shaft. Those actually have the breakaway so that you don't actually impale yourself if you get into a car accident. Because that's kind of a concern with old cars, right? The coil's cut, but it's in place, and it's enough to get us going for now until I can order a good used spare. Brake lines were cleaned, repainted, and verified that they were free of rust. The junction block in the middle, I think, is original. I just cleaned that up really well. And actually really enjoy brake lines. I enjoy the final trim of this stuff, but nothing is quite exact. It seems like all the angles are a little too round or a little generous in some spots. You know, it's a mass-produced car, but there's a lot of stuff on the firewall that can be put in place before the dashboard itself, but still everything can be done just about with the dashboard already in. The last thing to do is to protect the steering shaft from any scratches that it might incur or it might cause on the dashboard, as well as my head, because I'm going to be spending a lot of time in here later. Putting in the dashboard's pretty simple. I use new hardware all around, and the wiring that comes down from the top left section, that does tuck in very nicely through the left side of the dashboard. And that's as much wiring as we're going to get to in this episode, because I want to save all of that for one long episode next time.